All right, it's 7:55 PM. We're going to go ahead and reconvene back into regular session. First, I'm going to hand it off to the city manager to make another announcement.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the hometown Christmas again, particularly about the fireworks. And thanks, Ms. Quebec, in reference to reminding us about our veterans that may also have some type of PTSD issues. So if you know a veteran that's having issues with that, please get in contact with them as well and comfort them and help them as well. So sorry for not explaining that earlier as well, because it's extremely important. If you'll reach out to them, they'll be grateful.
Thank you, sir. So at this time, we're going to open the discussion on the item at hand. I'm going to open the floor to council for any questions, comments. I know the applicants have said they're willing to answer questions, as well as, I believe, Nathan Gonzalez. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor.
I'll go first, Mr. Mayor. My first question, which has been brought up in the P&Z meeting and last month and this month, which is the reference to 9.1 and the legality of that. I mean, a simple answer to this: is it legal? Is it not legal, Carvin?
Councilman Wright, I've looked at section 9.1, and I believe the proposed ordinance would meet the requirements of 9.1.
Okay, thank you for that. Jonathan, would you mind coming up? And go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yep, Jonathan Sheffron, 500 Steeplechase Trail, Glendale, Texas.
Jonathan, you represent the board of Steeplechase?
Yes,
And you used to be the chair of the board until just recently, a couple months ago, right?
yes.
So you're pretty intimate knowledge of this since the beginning.
Oh, yeah, I was here at the very first meeting at this spot when they first briefed us on the whole plan, and I emailed the whole neighborhood about the whole plan a long time ago.
Yes. And we've had a couple discussions over the years about this. Just a couple questions for you. The first one is, if we do approve this, we have to put in the contract all the things that you guys have been asking for. Is that not enough for Steeplechase?
I mean, I think the problem we've run into is every time the city has said, we are going to get you all your things, it's never happened. And so the trust is so eroded that we're kind of like, well, why don't you just honor that the trust has been eroded?
Sure.
And build the trust by doing the things that can be done. Like, why does it have to be so hard to get lights lowered that it takes months to get there? Why does it have to be so hard to get certain things that seem like really common sense things done? And so there's just this built up resistance by the citizens who are affected. I mean, some of the board members have lost their homes. They've sold, says we can't live in this position anymore. They move out of the neighborhood. So it's not going to fix it for any of them. So I think what we're saying is we do not believe honoring this zoning change will fix the trust problem. Does that make sense? Well, the city will just the city will do, the city will honor some things, won't honor some things. It doesn't really matter to show up to city council meetings. It doesn't really matter to bring codes up because the city's going to do whatever it do. So just go with the flow and be fatalistic about it. So that's kind of where the neighborhood is at. Is it that the city really will, honor some things, or is it, man, it doesn't really matter?
Okay, so, and just reviewing my notes from the public speaking and speaking to the neighbors.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I would have a cow if a car fell in my backyard. I wouldn't give back the car personally, but, and I get all that. And
Yeah.
it just seems like you didn't hold up your end of the bargain, so now we're going to punish you. But what the city is offering is in writing, in ink. This is, we will have to do this. Is that not enough is my question to you. Excuse me. Thank you. I'm talking to Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, I mean, I just keep coming back to, it's just been really, really for example, when we first started talking with Alta a few months ago, they said, hey, if you guys don't sign on to this PD change, we're going to remove the barrier because it's not the code. So it's just been all these threats that have come at different times. Like, if you don't get in line and get this zoning passed, then it's going to turn into HUD housing. It's going to turn into horrible things. We're going to remove the safety barriers, you know, trucks flying everywhere. And it just feels like this eroded trust is really the problem we have here. We have eroded trust from neighbors not believing the city or believing the developers or things like that. And it's hard to know where the truth is and all that. I mean, there's a lot of, just a ton of gray, man. There's a ton of like, man, I was here when the original plan was presented. That's not what was built. You know, I was here when I was saying we should not approve this certificate of occupancy. And I hear the developer say, yeah, that shouldn't have been approved. And yeah, it got approved and don't know who did it, you know, but it got approved and now it's good. And so it just seems to be a whole lot of just eroded trust. I just don't understand why we can't fix a lot of the things, because I don't believe any kind of financial barrier. If you said, hey, if I can invest a couple $100,000 in this and improve the value by 20 million, every single bank I talk to will give you that loan. So I don't believe the financial barrier is this big barrier that it's being presented to be. So I just don't believe that personally. And so I think just where I'm at is, and again, I'm a subset of the neighbors, you know, but that's just where I'm at is I think let's fix some things without having to be dragged to fix them. And again, I don't understand all the different parts, right? Like, you know, I don't understand why the city couldn't pass a building permit to move the trash cans. You know, I don't know. I mean, but whoever thought to put them there was really rude. And that's never really been communicated. Yeah, we shouldn't have done that. I was like, hey, it stinks to be you. They approved it. And so that's just kind of where the neighborhood's at a little bit.
And I can understand and relate that, but, you know, for me, it's hard for me to look backwards. I guess that's just a kind of
For
a rule
sure.
I have in my life. If you look backwards, you can't look forwards and it slows you down. So if you don't think that this is enough, what would you think the pathway forward? If putting it in black and white and
Oh,
saying
yeah.
you have to do this is not enough for the steeplechase, what would be the pathway forward?
I think you fix all the stuff that can be fixed and comply with MF code first. Like, if the problem is we don't feel like the city will enforce MF code and it's not shaving off a third story. So this whole idea like, oh yes, we fix all things. Yes, we agree. No one's going to shave off a third story in a building. So no one's doing that. But this idea that we can't bring the things that are fixable into MF coding, like why not do that? Like why has that not been done in 2023? Why has that not been done in 2022? And I don't understand why we have to change the zoning to fix what is already a conflict with MF zoning now. That's not shave off third story building and fix density and those kind of things. So I think where I'm at is let's fix all the fixable stuff that I was here when there was a spreadsheet, this is all in progress. And then like the in progress stopped. And I don't know why it stopped. Oh, all of a sudden we don't have the money for it. Well, and then different costs of things kept changing around. It's like, well, it's really expensive. Well, it's not that expensive. It's really expensive. And it just feels very confusing to us. So that's why I don't understand like why we can't just go fix everything that's fixable. And that's why I said in my earlier presentation, and then come back and say, okay, we've shown some good faith. We fixed some fixable things. We haven't had to been dragged every second to do them because that's the right thing to do for the neighborhood. And then let's talk about a PD.
Okay. One more question for you.
For sure.
And this is more of a personal one. You don't have to represent the HOA on this. This is kind of alluded by the applicant as well, and kind of by you guys as well, but I'm just gonna be very blunt about it.
Yeah.
Okay? There's really two choices on this for me, right? And I always try to make decisions on what it will look like 10 years from now,
Sure.
moving forward. So I'll be very blunt. If we approve this, they can sell to a high dollar landlord and buy it. If we don't, it's a difference of a slumlord apartment complex in North Arlington buying it. Which would you prefer in your backyard?
Well, I mean,
Excuse me. Thank
yeah,
you.
I mean, I don't fully believe that's what the scenario is. So I agree that that is the premise being presented. But I just want to say that if somebody has an asset that today is worth 30 million, and if I can invest 200,000 and sell it for 50 million in 6 months, I don't understand why, man, I can't make that investment. So
Well, there's the
I'm going
third
to sell for
story issue.
28,000, right? Yeah,
So there's a third story issue there that
Sure.
if we keep it MF, it's still non-conforming.
And I
So-
don't think
And that's why it's
anyone's,
the difference.
yeah, I don't think anyone is saying keep it MF forever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone's, I don't believe that should be the case. But I also have just very low confidence that I'm going to be 5 years from now walking through the neighborhood if it's pre-PD today. And, oh man, this stuff was so handled so well. Like all the code enforcement happened. Man, this looks exactly what we talked about when Jeff and I had this conversation. I just would love to see more like done first. And I think that's kind of because we've done the other and we keep looping back and back again, like, yeah, I don't know. And so I don't think if everything is done right with fixing all the spreadsheet stuff, and then an application is made for PD, I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I think I could see a value in the city approving that. But I don't understand why we would, just like the certificate of occupancy, I don't understand why we would grant a certificate of occupancy when it's non-conforming on day one. So if we're not going to do, like, why should we do that again if it's non-conforming? Like, and say we'll fix all the things. It's non-conforming the minute we do it. Why don't we make all the changes, and then the minute we stamp PD on it, it's conforming for the first time in history. And that feels like a good way to do it.
So it sounds like you would like us to do is maybe even table this, let them address the situation, and then come back and you're okay with it moving forward? That's what.
Yeah, if they accomplish all the things in the spreadsheet, I mean, we're not shaving off third stories. And man, this is as good as it can go, then that's a great time to have that conversation.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and interject. This is the time for the council's discussion amongst ourselves. If we can go ahead and wrap this conversation up, please. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my last question, Jonathan. Thank you. Can I have a representative from the applicant?
Just remind the council member, this is the time for the council's discussion amongst yourselves. The public hearing has been open and closed, and so you had an opportunity to question them
Okay.
at that time.
Then that's fine. You can sit down.
I'd like to be able to answer some of those things because I think they're fact-based. I mean, about what we can do or can't. I mean, the funny thing is everybody's talking about the same things. It's the timing problem. So like I had suggested, pass the ordinance zoning or pass the zoning, bring the ordinance back. We're not opposed to that. But the problem is we can't just fix all the things. To do that, and I don't know that the city attorney will tell you that some cities will do it and others won't, but we're willing to fix all the things. And I can't make neighbors trust the city. It is in black and white, and we're committed to doing it on a ambitious timeline. So but we couldn't get a permit for some of the things to fix. So that's the hardest part to kind of wrap your head around. And I understand why they're confused or where he said, I don't understand all this. We did the things that we could do, like we put in the trees, we've gone to the trash pickup, we lowered the lights, we did the guardrail. We have done things that we can do. We also do have a problem of we have to be able to pay for them. And
Sir, let's go ahead and finish our thoughts and finish your thought, and then let's keep it within the council. Thank you.
okay, the last thing I'll say is that the Plan Commission, we presented to them a letter from JLL. We hired a third party to look at this. The equity investor is here. All of the professional real estate people are telling you that what you said is, look at 10 years later, an institutional investor will not be able to buy this. And you can't go to market and raise it with private equity funds because it is non-conforming. It is.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
And I apologize, Mr. Mayor and Council. I didn't hear us close that part. I just heard us move to executive session. So I apologize.
Could you repeat? Did you?
I apologize. I didn't realize we closed the applicant part of our process. That's why I was asking.
Oh, no worries. Sorry. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, council.
All right, I'll go first. And this may be a question for Nathan or the city manager. If we issue the PD tonight, if they fail to do what's in the PD, what is the penalty or what action can the city then take to hold them accountable?
The ordinance at the bottom, just like most ordinances, will have a clause in there that says it's got to be enforced. Penalty would be $2,000 per day per violation if it doesn't enforce. So that's what we would be looking at having to do.
So on a $40 million asset, $2,000, so they get the PD and they say, we have a PD now, we're now conforming to a PD potentially, even though maybe they're not, but at least have the PD. And I'm not saying they would do that, not trying to point fingers at anybody, but again, is there enough teeth in there where the citizens of Steeplechase can feel comfortable that the city can go and hold them accountable to it? What if you added a 0 to that?
Well, I think that's a question for the city attorney, but the check in that is that when it goes to sell, we do what's called a zoning verification letter that buyer wants to see before they close on it. So if they don't perform, that zoning verification letter is going to highlight that, and they're in the same boat, right? And so, Lord forbid, in a year from now, you've got new staff or you've got different staff, right? And they have that in the ordinance that they can go and enforce, right?
So the PD wouldn't give them the opportunity just to skip town, sell the place and run. They still have to do it, or else they won't get the letter.
Part of the adopted site plan is that they have to provide these, and this ordinance is unlike other ordinances, has a start time, it's got to complete within a certain time frame. It's got to end within a certain time frame. They've also have required meetings that they are agreeing to having with the Steeplechase HOA, in addition to other items.
Okay. And I was at the P&Z meeting in August. It was very lively. I recognize the faces here tonight. Y'all have come back again, so thank you for that. To Nathan's point earlier, the challenge is what's the path forward? If we'll be back here again, having the same conversation over and over and over again. But what I do want to make sure is that the citizens feel like they've been heard and that they also are not back here in 3 months or 6 months saying, we told you so. So I'm trying to find, with the help of the council, what is the path forward? So I'll stop there.
I would jump in with Nathan, what he said. I mean, we're in the same position as we are in any zoning ordinance. We have the same penalties that we have in any of our zoning ordinances. And so if we have violations, it's a code enforcement issue, and those options are what we have available as applied to any other zone and district in the city.
So the fact that they're non-conforming now is not a violation.
So non-conforming, well, specifically, what is non-conforming is density, right? Lot coverage. These are things that I can't change, right? The retaining wall that was brought up. I mean, I have the faith of a mustard seed to move a mountain, but I don't know if I can do that with this particular mountain that's there in someone's backyard that retaining wall doesn't meet the 5-foot thing. So that's a non-conformity. It's not the reason or the primary reason of seeking the plan development. It's to improve the quality of life, which is in that same section. Other non-conformities that have been brought up, I don't necessarily agree with, in the sense that they have a fence that's 6 feet. It meets the minimum. It meets the requirement. I wouldn't call that a nonconformity. They could put an 8-foot, but the requirement is 6 feet. So things of that nature, shade trees, if that's something that we want to look at, that this new PD, again, has got double the trees put in
They're
there.
offering to pay for trees of residence yards, which.
Yeah, they're offering to do that.
And walls aren't cheap, and I'm sure a structural engineer looked at that and said, you need a wall this tall to hold back the soil so the thing doesn't slide into the neighbor's property. And it wasn't built just to annoy the adjacent neighbors. Again, though, we just want to make sure everyone's heard that they need to get conforming. They want to exit the property, is what it sounds like, which makes sense. That's just their business model.
Lighting was something that brought up when I first got there. Those light poles in the parking lot were 21
Those were
feet.
lowered, right?
Those were shaved down to 14 compliant, so that's not a nonconformity. I don't have any lighting issues that have been brought up that are an issue, so.
Thank you, Nathan. Mr. City Attorney, do we have any latitude in the ordinance in terms of just adding more teeth to this? Again, I'm hearing the residents, I hear their concerns. what can we change, in your legal opinion, to make them feel more comfortable?
There aren't any additional penalties that we could add. Our penalties are set by law and capped by law, so we're kind
So
of
we
there.
couldn't add a zero to that $2,000 penalty? That's, okay.
No, sir. There might be some things the applicant would volunteer to agree to modify the proposed exhibit. If they wanted to impose some penalties upon themselves, those things could be put in there. I mean, they've already put in some penalty, I mean, essentially, a time limit on themselves. I mean, there are possibly some other things that they could impose upon themselves, but as the city, I don't think we could do it.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions, comments from the council? No? Then I will entertain a motion.
Just a reminder to the council, this has been subjected to this protest, and it will require a supermajority. It would take 4 affirmative votes to pass.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to amend the Unified Development Code as described in zoning case 2410, a proposed zoning change request from multifamily district to PD plan development for approximately 10 acres for Block 1, Lot 2R1 of the Vaquero Cooker Addition, located at 3100 Joplin Road, City of Kennedale, known as Alta Landing.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Madam Secretary, the motion fails with a two in favor, 3 opposed. All right, so at this time, we are going to move to our consent agenda. And we've got one item, and that is the city council minutes. One, for the record, I believe the last council meeting was October the 15th. I don't know if we need to update that or just make a, is that correct? 15th, right? The last council meeting, I believe, was October the 15th.
You are correct.
Okay, okay. Okay, the minute, yes, minutes are right, just for the date. So does anybody want to discuss this, or? I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? And all opposed with a like sign for the record. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. And before we go into our next section of the meeting, let's take a 5-minute stretch break. It's 8:18, be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Ready back? Is Jeff back? All right, the time is 8:26 PM, and we're going to go ahead and reconvene. So at this, we're moving into items for individual consideration, discussion, and/or action. And the first item is discuss and take action to update the City of Kennedale nuisance ordinance, providing additional regulations for outdoor lighting. Open the floor for discussion. I'm sorry, presentation.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Before you is a light trespass ordinance. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
So Nathan, I don't have any questions per se. I'm the one who kind of brought this up the first time, so thank you for your help on it. I think what you've proposed meets the original intent. It looks like it's trimmed down a little bit, maybe a little easier to understand, so thank you for that. I don't have anything else to really add to it. Ask the rest of the council.
Other questions?
Just to clarify, what we've done is we've amended one chapter of the city code to address the concerns about light nuisances, correct?
Correct. We've added a section to Chapter 15, which health nuisances, loud noise nuisances. So now we have an inclusion of that speaks, specifically to light trespass, declaring that a nuisance in the city outside of a development code or a development standard. So that's something that we can now address. In fact, the staff, we've already purchased a light meter and taken some measurements. Yep.
Nathan, can I just point out the definition there under the exemption section? I want to bring to the council's attention there on page 2 at the bottom, that section 5, there is an exception that is made for holiday decorations. I just want to make sure you guys have read that exception. It's 45 days in advance of the holiday.
Correct. I think that alleviates some of the concerns raised previously. It's not a war on Christmas or anything like that. It's just simply making it where your light needs to basically stop at your property for the most part. And I think it comes over a little bit. Nathan, I tried to figure this out with Google, and maybe my Google foo is off to date. Can you elaborate how far thank you, I think you know where my question is going. How far of a light candle?
This is hot off the press right here, but
Not exceeding, so the paragraph 5 that City Attorney was referring to says, the section of question was, and not exceeding half-foot candles measured in the abutting property line or right-of-way, so related to holiday lights.
correct. So with that, an example would be for, if you are standing at a lamppost here in the town center park, directly under it, you'll experience 1.6-foot candles. If you're standing directly under the overhang of City Hall where we have Christmas lights, that's about 8.6-foot candles. If you back up a little further, which would be equivalent to your neighboring property, your neighbor's home, things like that, if you're in the middle of the west parking lot over here, that's where you would experience half-a-foot candle, which is consistent with other residential requirements that we have in town.
So, like, how many feet, yards, do you think it is for the half candle? Would you say 20 yards?
So the best way I can describe it, I think, is when I'm getting into the metric system, but like a lux is equivalent to the shine within a meter. I'm not a big fan of the metric system, right? Pro-America. So we use a different system here, right? So a foot candle would be essentially the light that exhibits from a candle within 1 square foot. So half of that foot candle, what you would see in the west parking lot looking at Christmas lights, that's about the distance that it would measure on that particular meter. And so if I'm standing at the road and someone has got about a 30-foot setback to the home and they've got their show going, or maybe they have a spotlight or something like that, that's where we would measure. We would measure maybe from the adjacent property line. Usually that's where you have your setbacks for a home, and we can take that particular measurement at that property line.
So it would depend on the power of the bulb or how many lumens it's pushing out or eliminating. But just to reiterate what you said, because like y'all went out in the parking lot and tested this tonight, I may go with you after the meeting just to see it myself. So the Christmas lights are up now. They extend out, you can go out to the middle of the parking lot, and that's half a foot candle. So if my house was the City Hall building, I would only be in violation if the light went out that far into the parking lot.
If it exceeded half a foot candle on the west parking lot over here, where our employees park over here on this side. So if we're in that, right around where they park that dividing line, and you're looking at a building that's got some lighting on it, that's the distance to. So it's about 20, 30 feet, something of that nature. But that's where, if it exceeds a foot candle, that's when we can kind of address it. We can say, hey, can you redirect the light so it doesn't escape the limits of the property? And that's where that measurement would take place.
Nathan, what would they call a quarter pounder with cheese in France?
Dinner.
Looking,
S'il vous plaît, yeah.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah. I think she speaks like 8 languages, I think.
he brought forth the metric system. I couldn't resist, so. Sorry about that. Any other questions, comments from the council?
Nathan, just to expand on that, we're not talking about the line of sight of it, but the illumination of it.
Correct.
So the half candle, if it illuminates the parking lot, let's say the floor, how do you gauge that? I guess, how do you light test? I understand how to sound test, but how do you light test?
We have a meter. I wanted to say because science, but it's probably not appropriate for council. Forgive me. But we have a meter that will take measurements, and it's got a lens that's on it that you can hold up, and depending on where you hold that, that's where in like industrial places, commercial places, they have to have a certain amount of lighting requirement for, OSHA requirements and things like that. So they have meters out there, and we've recently purchased a meter that would measure the output in lux, lumens, foot candles. We can take a measurement now.
And then can you just expand on one section for me? This is 15.186, the non-conforming outdoor luminaries. So if I read this right, nobody's grandfathered in, but if there is a current violation, before we pass this, you're requiring them to fix it within 3 months? Is that how I read that right?
Right. So if we do have some light trespass in the city, which I imagine we do, that particularly like if it's commercial and it's adjacent to residential and it's causing an issue, we'll get that addressed. The non-conforming saying it's because it's a nuisance, it's not really a development standard. So I wouldn't really call it a non-conformity, but it is in the ordinance. It's basically saying anything that's out there that doesn't comply to this rule, we're going to give them 3 months to go ahead and come into compliance with that. And we're going to, quite frankly, we're going to extend that. That's just the standard, but often we'll make contact and say, hey, listen, you're exceeding the light trespass limits, and how much time do you need to shield that? A lot of times it could just be done right then and there. Loading areas, things of that nature. But in residential, thankfully, we don't have a widespread issue in town, but there is a gap in our ordinance that we don't have that addressed already. So it's probably not a bad thing to put that in place.
And I read this, but just to say it out loud, the exemptions cover things like schools, the racetrack, for example.
Absolutely.
Even if we put a light on the water tower kind of thing, it exempt.
Yeah, recreational events, I mean, I probably wouldn't have a job if I had to shut down Hometown Christmas because it was too bright, right? But the.
And fireworks.
The, but sporting events, the school, the speed track, you know, the speedway, there's exemptions in there for, parks, lighting at the park, for example, that's exempt as well. So I know we're gonna be adding some lights to back parking lot of, Sonora Park. And if there's any nearby residential, well, it's exempt from that.
Okay, and just one last question. What about car lots? So let's say a car lot, I mean, with the RV place that closed down, for example, they have very bright lights so they can see throughout their lot. Are you just gonna go in and have them required to shield it, basically?
Correct, yeah,
Or it
downcast.
doesn't go outside the gate? It's all
Correct.
pointed down, pointed in?
That's exactly right. We still want, I mean, in the interest of public safety, we want our commercial businesses well lit, kind of prevent burglaries, things of that nature. I know the police department would appreciate that. So we'll just work with them to put some shielding. There are quite a bit of lights, exterior lights out here that don't have the shielding. And it's just a simple shade that you can get to downcast it and still meet your security needs.
All right, thank you, Nathan.
Sure.
I got one question. What about these, and Councilman Navarez could probably help me out, is it gel lights that people are putting up on their houses that stay up year-round?
The jellyfish lights?
Yeah, jellyfish lights? So where would that fall under this ordinance? I mean, would it be a holiday light, or would they have to report to the city and say, I got gel lights on my house?
No, it's exterior lighting, and a lot of those have a settings on there to where it's just ambiance. I don't imagine those would violate this particular foot candle ordinance or requirement. But if it was too bright, I mean, you could probably, I'm not familiar with, I'm familiar with jellyfish. Did I say that right?
Yeah, jellyfish.
I've seen like the ads, but I've never seen them installed, never permanent, I've never seen them in person. So I imagine they can get pretty bright, you know. So we'll work with them to bring that into compliance.
We might actually have to look at that one. I mean, the ordinance talks about temporary holidays, so if it's a permanent light, then it's gonna fall outside of that exception. It's not temporary.
And all a jellyfish light is, if you imagine those little lights you can put in your closet that are battery operated, you turn on, there's a bunch of those, like Christmas lights around there. And in our HOA, we did have an instance where one house was very bright, in particular going to the neighbor's window. And so we passed an ordinance in our HOA, and all they did was turn it down, the dim part of it, or not do so bright of a white and did more of a soft white or a yellow or something like that.
Got to see one of these. Further comments, questions?
My only comment to you, David, is I know we were going back and forth on this the last couple of times. The exemptions fulfill my kind of problem with it, I guess. It covers everything that I can even think of in the future or currently. So for me, I appreciate your time in this.
Thank you, Councilman Navarez. Yeah, it has been, this one's been a few sessions in the making, so it's been a productive, hopefully a productive conversation. We'll see. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to update the City of Kennedale nuisance ordinance providing additional regulations for outdoor lighting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? And all opposed with a like sign? Madam Secretary, the motion passes 4-1. All right, moving on. Item number 2 is to discuss and take action on a 380 agreement with Southwest Ambulance. I finally got my packet back in order now. So, don't see a presentation. Mr.
You should have the 380 agreement in the packet.
We do, it's there.
I'm having the same problem. I did. Do we have a direct question regarding the 380 or?
I'll just open it up for discussion, questions. Anybody? Well, then, do we have a motion? Discussion? What?
So just to kind of, do you want to run through the high notes on this? Because it looks like they're agreeing to hire 25 new FTEs by the end of 2025. And it's a $35 million investment? No, sales.
Yes, there's several stipulations with it. One obviously is taxing for that. And also the other, on the EDC side, is matching a employee or having a destination of the number of employees, which he's already met in that requirement. He done that within just the last 6 weeks.
Any other questions, comments?
My only comment, Mr. Mayor, is, as somebody who's been around as long as I have, it's been the history of the city not to do things like this. But the city's stance has always been, let's do better business. So I appreciate the city manager for, trailblazing these last couple 380 agreements. And I know we have maybe one more coming. And I think that's just a good sign that we're open for business.
I would agree with you, Councilman Navarez, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the 380 agreement with Southwest Ambulance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? And for the record, all opposed with a like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. All right. Item 3, discuss and take action on a resurfacing project for the Kennedale Town Center Playground. Christian, I believe you're up.
Mayor, Council, the item before you is for the resurfacing of the town center playground, and staff is seeking your approval for that item. Basically, we're just going to remove and replace the engineered wood.
All right. Do we have any questions, comments from the council?
The reason why we're moving it is the existing compost or
It's
wood
deteriorating.
fiber is broke down to compost. So-
Correct.
And if I remember right, there should be some type of French drains in there
It
to
is.
keep the water from blowing out, and it's probably clogged up. Okay, that was it.
So this is just not the wood surfacing, it's gonna dig it out, dig underneath, make sure, like you said, the drains are correct.
Right, yeah, it's going to be removed totally and then check the French drain, clean them out and resurface back.
Now, I know I had a couple of residents in the last couple of months mention about, as far as the awning, the cover, I mean, it's not the ground, but the awnings. Are we doing anything with, the covers being, what do you call it? Worn down or, fading and stuff like that? Is that would be something totally different? I'm
Correct.
just thinking about.
Those are the
something we could
items,
do
yeah.
to the park to make.
Play
better.
item, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times when you get like playground equipment that's oxidizing like that, you come in with a torch and heat it up, and
Okay.
it'll go back to its natural shine.
Okay.
Now, we do have plans to put shading at Sonora Park, but currently we don't have any plan to put any here in the town center. I'm just making
Yeah,
sure
I was
that,
just talking, yeah.
okay,
I was
just in general. Okay.
Yeah, I was just talking kind of like Ken said, I understand that.
Okay.
Okay.
Was this a budgeted item, or how are we funding this?
This is going to be funded from the park dedication fund.
Thank you.
You bet.
Christian, what are we replacing it with rubber tops? Or are we putting more wood in?
Engineered wood, basically what
Okay.
it has right now.
I just saw something in here, no pricing about rubber surfacing.
Well, are you ready to pay for that?
You know I am. If we've
I
had
want
long
that.
discussions.
So we had I haven't been to Sonora Park in a minute. We used to have piles of mulch out there. Is that, or can we haul that over, or we bring in new mulch?
We're bringing in new wood chip. All that would be hauled off.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the same concept is, in the past, they just kept adding new mulch on top of it, new mulch, and the bottom section is just starting to compost.
Right, I
So
mean,
it's just turning into dirt.
yeah, I mean, clean it out and then
We
just
need
bring
to
the mulch
clean it
over
out and
from
then come in
Sonora.
with new stuff, and then it'll be good for another 10 years,
Okay.
or till we come in with the rubber mat.
I'm all for rubber.
One more question, please, Christian. On the quote, it talks about 3 to 6 week project completion time, but also talks about a yearly code maintenance poured in place recommended every year to 18 months. Do you know what that cost will be to keep the warranty in effect? So to keep the warranty in effect, we have to do some maintenance.
You're looking
on
like
this.
about $5,000,
Okay.
but yeah.
And then would that be part of be put into the KBB maintenance budget or something?
No,
Well, I don't
it'll
know.
be in the parks.
In the parks?
Yeah.
Parks board, okay. Just making sure.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the resurfacing project for the Kennedale Town Center Playground.
Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have 2 seconds.
Give it to Jeff.
All right. Any further discussion?
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor. This is always exciting stuff for the parks. It's been one of my biggest goals for a long time. I would love to see, starting January, some, to move on to one of our other parks that's getting ignored. So, Mr. Hall, just so you know, I would like to put that on our radar. We have one more park that needs a lot of attention, and we still have quite a few amount of money in that account to do that.
Yeah, as we continue to move forward, as you can tell, we already put some security stuff at Sonora Park. When you start talking about some of the lighting, you will also start seeing some of that take place, most likely in December, maybe in January, but you'll start seeing lighting at Rogers Farm as well. We'll have lighting that's coming to the basketball court. And same thing for the signage at Rogers Farm. That sign will be redone as well, so same for Sonora Park.
Well, that's a start.
It is.
Okay.
All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Do we have any further discussion? All right, all in favor? And for the record, all opposed with a like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. And now for our final item for individual consideration. Discuss and take action on a resolution to cast the City of Kennedale's final ballot for appointments to the Tarrant Appraisal District's Board of Directors. And just as a reminder, the city has 5 voting positions. Those can be segregated. They can be all combined into one candidate. And going to open the floor for discussion.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I know this is kind of like one of those organizations in Texas that a lot of people don't know about and know who these people are. And I do appreciate the city putting all this in our packet, all the applicants. It helped me organize all the emails I got. Just a little kind of what we've done in the past is we just kind of spread our votes around to the top 5, basically. Of course, we don't have to do that now, but just so you all aware that that's how the city's kind of addressed this in the past. And the ISD has also done it very similarly. There are some great, candidates here, like Mr. Blaylock. I know him very well. He's a good public servant to the city of Fort Worth. Gloria Pena, I know of her. She does a good job as well. And I believe it was Daryl Davis was another one that I've heard of. But they all look like great candidates. But those are kind of like the top. Oh, and of course, Wendy Burgess. That would be my primary candidate for myself. I know Wendy very, very well, as she is our current tax assessor on her way out. She has been involved in Tarrant County for 15 years, her and her ex-husband, who've been really a part of this community. And so I do highly recommend Wendy. If you never met her, she's an amazing person. She's a straight shooter, and she knows her stuff.
Noted. And, obviously I don't vote, but Mike Alfred, I would highly recommend we place a vote to him as well. Any other comments? Suggestions, excuse me?
So I think in a previous council meeting, and I'm just asking to confirm something about this list, somebody commented that Mr. Lasada was not going to run, and I'm seeing his name on here. So is that correct?
He
that
he is running. I think there was some
Okay,
confusion with the nominating process, but he is in fact running.
thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Mr. Mayor, for me, I would like at least one vote in for Wendy Burgess, and then which one did you recommend?
Mike Alfred?
One vote for that one as well. At the very least, if we can agree on that, we can talk about the other three.
Yeah. I'm good with
Just a
that.
proposal that, because I have a feeling that each of us would have some pretty strong feelings about certain people over others. So maybe one way to address that would be that if each one of us put one name forward, those would be our 5 votes. It seems like an equitable way to do this.
It is up to the council.
I'm fine with that, Ms. Corbett.
All right.
Mine would be Ms. Burgess.
Okay. I guess I'll just go down the aisle. Councilman Gary, do you need some more time? First off, is everybody on the council good with that? Okay,
All right, I'll do Mr. Alfred.
okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm leaning to Fred Campos.
All right. Councilmember Kobeck?
Mr. Lasada?
Right. And Councilman Glover?
I'll put a second vote for Miss Wendy Burgess.
Okay. So if everybody in the council is okay with this, then I believe we would need a motion to cast 2 votes for Wendy Burgess, 1 for Mike Alfred, 1 for Fred Campos, 1 for Gary Lasada. So moved? Okay. Okay.
I just need someone to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, do we have a second to cast 2 votes for Wendy Burgess, 1 for Mike Alfred, 1 for Fred Campos, and 1 for Gary Lasada, repeating for the city secretary there?
I will second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? And for the record, all opposed with a like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. And are you good with the candidates with votes? Got them? Okay. All right, so at this time, it is 8:55 PM, and we're going to move to executive session pursuant to Section 551.071 to consult with the city attorney and, yes, sir. And also 551.074 personnel matters. All right, it is 8:55. All right, it is 10:24 PM. We are now reconvening into regular session. And do I have a motion?
Yes, you do. I motion to make the following appointments. For Economic Development Corporation, Place 2, Marcel Terry. Place 4, Jeff Navarez. Place 6, Mark Young. Keep Kennedale Beautiful, Place 2, Keith Courtney. Place 4, Laurie Sanders. Parks and Recreation, Place 2, Vansh Singh. I hope I said that correctly. Place 4, Corey Hines. Town Center Board, Place 2, Tyson Eubanks. Place 4, Jeff Navarez. Board of Adjustment, Place 2, Kelly Turner. Place 4, Amanda Hollins. Alternate, Tiffany Murokazi. Library Board, Place 2, Lori Boyd. Place 4, Elfreda Jones.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I second.
All in favor? And for the record, all opposed with the like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. And now, everybody's favorite.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Second. It is 10:26 PM, and this meeting is adjourned.